Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DiscoTrek. I'm Alexandra August.
I'm Johnny Kolasinski.
And welcome to our Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Yeah.
We'll be discussing episode 1.6, Lethe.
That's correct. Now, you can find this podcast on iTunes at the DiscoTrek. You can find us on Twitter at the DiscoTrek. And for now, you can find all the back episodes at gotthrones.com or on our Facebook page, Got Thrones.
Mm-hmm. All announcements regarding this podcast right now will take place on our on the Got Thrones Facebook page as well. And for now, we're also still putting episodes on the Got Thrones stream on iTunes. So it's going to be hard to...
So no one misses anything.
Yeah. We'll probably stop. We'll probably do that through the end of this first half of the season and then stop that when the second half begins in 2018.
Correct.
All right. So yeah, let's dive in. Before we actually start talking about the episode itself or getting into the synopsis, Johnny and I really wanted to talk about the significance of the guy who wrote this episode, or the gentleman who wrote this episode, Joe Menosky and Ted Sullivan.
Right. Now, Joe Menosky, if you ever saw an episode of Star Trek, you probably saw one that he wrote.
Specifically Voyager.
Specifically Voyager. He wrote 36 episodes of Star Trek Voyager.
And many of them were incredibly significant, like big two-parters. Yeah. Equinox, which is a name we've dropped
multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Specifically regarding the Ripper storyline, if you'll recall. And then some of the other ones, like Scorpion, which was Scorpion Parts 1 and Part 2. It
introduced 7 of 9.
Yep, and introduced the first major conflict between Janeway and Chakotay since kind of their original coming together, and
Dark Frontier, which is the equivalent of a Mirror Universe episode for Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't Living Witness similar to that as well?
Yeah, Living Witness was when the Doctor gets activated, and he is.
Oh, I was thinking that one was Dark Frontier.
Oh, I actually forget what Dark Frontier was about, but Living Witness was when the Doctor is basically his program is reactivated 700 something years in the future on this planet, where people have discovered either a remnant of Voyager or something, and they've built this history on Voyager that makes them seem like these conquering. Makes them seem like Mirror Universe people. Like they're conquerors. They enslave any race they get. They do whatever they can get to get home. There's no prime directive, and Janeway has a horrible buzz haircut, and Chakotay has a face a full face tattoo, and it's great. Highly recommend you check out that episode. It is a barrel of laughs. And then the Doctor is like, "This is not how it happened at all."
And he also wrote, probably the one that's most well known that he wrote was Darmok.
Mm-hmm. On the Next Generation.
On the Next Generation. Which was the Shaka when the walls fell.
Picard.
Aliens that only speak in not metaphors, but
yeah, essentially Picard is on a planet and
allegories.
He speaks in allegory. His universal I think his universal translator is actually malfunctioned, and that's part of the reason that they're not. I don't think it's it's that the universal translator cannot handle that language for some reason. Oh yeah, and that's why he speaks
for plot purposes.
Yeah, well, and that's also why he speaks English, but he speaks in these allegories, so it's like he's still impossible to. It's just it's a brilliant, fun episode, and it's Tarmac and Tanagra has been on a billion parody band concert posters that you've ever seen. It's it's this guy is a Star Trek guy.
Yep, and also Year of Hell for Voyager, which is another. Yeah. Things go to shit episode.
This guy, the fact that he wrote Scorpion is just pretty that was Voyager's first, outside of Basics, that was Voyager's kind of biggest two-parter, and it was the most game-changing, paradigm-shifting two-parter that the show had ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on to write a lot more of those. Matrix Zero really gave us a whole new element of the Borg and a whole new idea to what, kind of, literally the Borg is like the Matrix, where you have when the drones are kind of sleeping, they've managed to create their own sort of holodeck area, and you learn that 7 of 9 was part of kind of a resistance before she left and went to Voyager, that she she doesn't have an awareness of that, but when she's plugged back into the Matrix Zero, she remembers this whole life that she had, and she had a lover, and she was kind of I don't know, it was just a really this guy is a great Star Trek writer. He's written a lot of written a lot of cornerstone, really significant episodes of the series on DS9 and on TNG as well as Voyager. Though Voyager was his biggest.
I think the one thing that you can say that tied together a lot of the episodes that he wrote is that he wrote the episodes that use the framework of Star Trek to tell a larger science fiction story and not just tell the plot of a ship in space.
Yeah. Yeah, all the episodes that he wrote for Voyager, a lot of them were extremely ambitious, which I think is a word we've used with this in regard to this show quite a bit.
So let's move into what happened in Lethe.
One other thing I want to mention. Ted Sullivan is the other guy on this. He is a co-executive producer on Discovery, and he used to be a writer for Revenge and As the World Turns. And I think it is so brilliant that we have this wonderful we do have a wonderful science fiction, very Star Trek A-plot where we've got Mike having to get into this nebula and basically astral project to Sarek. And then on the other side of it, we've also got this there's a lot of relationship family work that happens in this episode and a lot of high emotion and the tinglings of romance between Ash Tyler and Michael Burnham, which I specifically want to talk about because there was something that Sonequa Martin Green mentioned at Comic-Con that I think ties into that. But so put a pin in that, I guess, listeners. And
pin is put.
Johnny. So I think that you can really see the fingerprints of both of these writers all over this episode. And I really liked it.
Yeah.
The dialogue specifically, like if you watch Choose Your Pain and Lethe back to back, which I just did this evening, it's a marked difference in quality.
Yeah. It comes like right at you from the beginning with Tilly and Mike on their jog.
Yeah. So let's do the synopsis real quick, and then we'll get to that because I wanted to talk about that jog as well. So this is the first time we open. I believe we open on Sarek, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we open on Sarek, who is on his way to meet with a couple of Klingon families houses that are not pleased to be under Kol's rule and would like the war to end. So they are meeting with Ambassador Sarek to discuss on neutral ground to discuss a possible truce. Along the way, Sarek's ship is sabotaged by a logic extremist who does not believe that humans should be integrated into Vulcan society at all. Sarek manages to disable the guy before he blows the ship up, but he's wounded and damaged, and he sends like a mental distress signal to Mike, who
gets it at brunch.
Yeah, who gets it at Smoothie, gets it at eating a breakfast burrito, and realizes that she needs to, and tells Lorca, she's like, he's lost in this. He is, she explains her connection to him. She's like, we need to go get him. And so they jump in. Once they get there, they realize that they can't tell where he is. It's a huge nebula, but there's so much radiation that their sensors are useless. And so Mike says, all right, I'm taking a shuttle and just get me close. Stamets makes her like a kind of a mental telepathy enhancer. So
it's a mechanical, like, mind meld hand.
Yeah, it's a signal booster essentially.
Yeah,
and so the idea is they'll go into this nebula. She'll put on the signal booster. She'll be able to communicate with Sarek more directly and get him kind of like using the same idea of the relationship that they use to hook Stamets up to the spore drive. That she'll be able to use the Katra connection she has with Sarek to communicate with him, and then eventually force him to press his distress beacon, which will tell them where he's located. So. While she does this...
Meanwhile...
Yeah, while she's in his head trying to reach him, he's remembering his worst memory, which is her getting denied entry to the Vulcan Science Academy. And we'll I think we can unpack that later, but that's... She keeps trying to reach him, but he's locked in that memory. He basically like keeps kicking the shit out of her physically when she tries to reach him. And so yeah, that's the one plot, and then the other plot is once Admiral Cornwell realizes that Lorca's like, let's go rescue Sarek without consulting anybody with this very expensive, very important ship, she comes on board and is his old friend.
Admiral Cornwell says, you're being too impulsive, and then they immediately have sex.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think she has her reasons for that. I think that was a little bit more, I think that was calculated. But yeah, so again, like I said, we are getting more romance and bathrooms on this Star Trek than we ever have on any other Star Trek before. It's nice. So Admiral Cordwell comes on and she basically calls him out, and from what we've learned of she calls him out for not having really done the necessary therapy to be fit for duty after killing his entire crew and escaping. So she thinks it's basically like, you've got PTSD. I'm using very broad terms. Like, you've got PTSD. You should not be in command. I know you passed all these tests, but you're my friend. I know you. This is not like you, and something's weird. And he's like, let's stop arguing and have a drink. And she's like, okay. And they sleep together, but then she like tickles his back and he almost kills her with a phaser. And she's like, I knew it. You're crazy. You cannot be in command. And luckily, at that time, they get Sarek back, but he's too ill to go meet with the Klingons, so she has to do it. And then she's captured, and the very last, her phaser doesn't work when she tries to shoot one of the Klingons, even though all of her guards are dead. And the last shot we get of Lorca is him looking out into the starfield with a phaser tucked in his back, and you get the idea that he either switched out phasers or he damaged hers.
I missed that.
I mean, I'm speculating, but I don't know why they would zoom in on a phaser if that wasn't the issue. And then he also,
I missed that his phaser didn't work, that her phaser didn't work.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then
nice.
Well, and also
good catch.
That I haven't been making a lot of them this season, so I'm happy to have that. But also too, when Sarek's in danger, he immediately is like, let's go rescue him. And then when word gets back that Cornwell's been captured by Cole, because this whole thing was a trap, they wanted to grab Sarek, but luckily they got this admiral instead. Lorca's like, let's talk to Starfleet and see what we should do. I don't think that we should go after her. And Saru's like, really? And Lorca's like, uh-huh. Because Cornwell was going to have him removed from duty. And she could have done that. She could have done that.
And, well, that's specifically what she would have wanted.
Oh, yeah. Wait, what?
He's absolutely following orders.
That is ironic and cool. So, okay, yeah. So that's what happens. We get these kind of, and then also along the way, Ash Tyler and Mike Burnham find more common ground and seem to start really liking each other.
Yeah.
So let's knock into it.
Yeah.
Do you have an overall kind of what? I feel like we both thought pretty positively of this episode. Was there anything that you didn't like?
This was my favorite episode so far, honestly. Other than the fact that I don't know that I bought Cornwall jumping right back into bed with it made Cornwell feel a little bit corrupt.
I have a theory about that, but okay.
Well, the fact that she kind of gave him his command back, that she'd been pulling for him, and also she's sleeping with him, it made her feel corrupt a little bit, but not. It was something I disliked in a character, didn't dislike in the episode.
Can I posit a theory to you on that?
Yeah.
So she's a psychiatrist. She's a doctor, or she's some kind of mental health professional who's a doctor. I don't know if she's a psychologist or what, but they're old friends. So I don't think that they're romantic partners. I think they were probably people who, when they were on the same ship and whatever, shared a bed.
Yeah.
I think at the outset she wasn't going to get to him. She walked on that ship and was like, you need help. What is going on with you? I don't think you're better. I'm your friend. I think you really, really, really need to take a step back, because the behavior that you're exhibiting is not the Lorca that I know. And it is absolutely the behavior of somebody who is severely psychologically damaged over recent events. You were just tortured a week ago and you're back at work. What is going on? And he keeps putting her off and putting her off. And finally, I think she sleeps with him in order to really test him. I don't think that she's doing that just as enjoyment. I think she was like, okay, I can't get to you directly. It was
to get him in a spot with it where his barriers were down.
Yeah, in the sense of like, okay, I'm going to see how you behave when you think I'm not looking.
Right. And it turns out I'm going to pull a gun on your face.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been rewatching Grey's Anatomy just for background noise, and like the episode, I don't know if there are any Grey's Anatomy fans out there, but there is a storyline between Christina Yang and Owen Hunt. He is an army major medic that is sent back from Iraq with severe PTSD, and he of course heads up trauma at Seattle Grace, because why not? And they sleep the first time they sleep, they share a bed. They don't actually have sex. He wakes up and he in his sleep strangles her, and to the point where like she's terrified that he's going to kill her, and the only reason she's saved is because her roommate comes in. So just because I watched that episode like yesterday, so it really it's very parallel. This show is like Grey's Anatomy and Battlestar Galactica. But
I don't think that that's going to make it into the advertising roles for season 2.
It's BSG meets Grey's Anatomy.
DiscoTrek.
Does that?
Yeah, no, that works.
Okay.
Again, it is her putting her. To me, them having that relationship and her being the one who fought for him is not isn't a feather in Starfleet's cap.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It speaks to sort of the blurred lines of this Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, I like her enough that I feel like she's not a dick. It's just sort of like this is kind of how this Starfleet works.
Yeah,
maybe.
There's a Voyager quote that I saw on Reddit. Where Janeway talks about how this was the Wild West of Starfleet, where you had to move a little bit, where you had to get away with things that you wouldn't have now. And Janeway was very happy to be where she was, but she would have loved to ride shotgun with Kirk, McCoy, and Spock just once.
Yeah. I love that Janeway says it. I'm like, girl, you break the rules all the time.
Yeah.
Which is why I like her so much, but... Anyway, character consistency on Voyager was never one of their strong suits.
No, except for in the episodes written by Joe Menosky.
Because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
So one thing I want, we talked about this in our previous episode about how Lorca is just like going so dark to the point where I'm worried that he's going to become irredeemable. And this was the episode where I was like, the stuff with the Admiral, I honestly thought he was going to kill her.
I thought he was going to kill her until he pulled the gun.
Yeah. Well, I thought because after, I thought that after, because, I see what you're saying. Like he was going to.
Yeah, like.
I didn't think that he would have done something like that unless she provoked him to this degree, because he said, all I have is my command, all I have is my ship. He's trying to redeem himself with Discovery. That's what he's trying to do. And so she can't, and he also like, it's very true. Discovery is really the best and only weapon they have against the Klingons. And he believes that he is the only person who can captain it. So I really fully thought that he was going to like just accidentally blow her out in airlock. And
I think he did.
I know, and that's like, I was like, that's kind of what he did. He sent her into that lion's den. And he knows what it's like to be a prisoner of the Klingons. It's what he tried to save his crew from. And he sent this woman that he supposedly has feeling,
Yeah,
they made
one of his oldest friends.
Yeah, and clearly a very intimate friend. We don't know the details of their relationship. Clearly, they're an amicable, loving couple. If they're a couple at all, like they're amicable wherever they're at.
There were no hints that this was the first time.
Yeah, and there were no hints that there was any acrimony between them. This is
right.
A very, and it just seems like
this is what Tasha Yar and Data would have grown into.
Ew. Don't. That's no. Ugh. It's also fun to me that like this is Ted Sullivan wrote for As the World Turns and Revenge, I think I mentioned, and this was some very soap opera-y sex. This one's very manipulative. Both of them had agendas. Like this was 100% could happen on General Hospital.
One of them found out that the other one had a tattoo she didn't know about.
Wasn't that an interesting scar? It was a perfect triangle that she was tracing.
Theory?
What's the theory?
On the internet?
Uh-huh.
Is that it's a Section 31 brand.
Ooh.
3 sides and then 1 line.
I mean, okay,
I don't know that I like it.
That's reaching, but I would believe that because the 1 line looked like it was an actual scar, and the triangle looked like it was a brand.
Yeah.
A very like a nice brand, one done with a very like small thing, but yeah, I think that's going to be significant, and I think it's significant that the only person who's seen it is now a Klingon prisoner. So, or maybe she'll see something like it in wherever she is. Anyway, so I'm worried that he's not going to make it through season 1, that there's going to be no way for Lorca to stay in the captain's chair. and for this to still be Star Trek. I don't know. Or maybe like he is a Mirror Universe guy and we're going to get regular Lorca back. I don't know. It's
or that Mirror Universe Lorca is Happy Hug Time Lorca.
Yeah, and the world is upside down. Is there anything else that I'm trying to think of anything else I liked the stuff between Stamets and... I thought this was a really well-balanced episode in terms of, like, A-plot, B-plot. Like, really, really good.
Lorca and Ash Tyler.
Yeah, this was, again, just kind of goes, like, bouncing off of what I said last episode of how, like, the Ash Tyler knew right how to get in there. He knew right how to get under all of Lorca's barriers. And just like Mike, Ash Tyler has a commission. Has a position.
Yeah.
Well, he had a commission, but...
Yeah, but he's got a seat.
He's tactical, and I was like, oh, that's why we had a tactical officer, so we could sneak Ash Tyler in her place.
Now, So, Lorca made a point of the fact that he's a nitpicker, and...
I like that.
I'm sorry, he splits hairs. I liked that a lot.
Me too.
I also like the "don't ever apologize for excellence" moment. But
what I liked about his splitting hair was that it's something I feel like anybody who's lived in and around a major city that's something we do. Like he's like,
yeah,
I'm from Seattle, which is like the least Klingon city they could have picked for somebody,
except for Portland.
Like the fact that like he's like, you're from 24 miles outside of Seattle. This reminded me of anybody who's ever said that they're from Cleveland and they're like, oh no, really, I'm from Willoughby, or like you're from no, you're not. You're not.
My wife's from Talmadge. She's not from Akron.
Yeah, you're from Bowling Green. You're not from Toledo.
Exactly.
You're from Oregon. You're from Oregon. You're not from Toledo.
And it's Oregon, not Oregon. That's how we would detect an alien in our midst.
Exactly. That's how we would do it. If Klingons ever wanted to infiltrate Oregon, Ohio, and they called it Oregon, we would know.
We'd know in his heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. We would.
I've killed 3 people because I assumed.
You probably assumed.
Some of Maxwell's.
I think honestly, Johnny, don't look back.
I didn't. Yeah, I was. I don't apologize for excellence.
You know what you did.
I know what I did.
So sorry. Back to Ash Tyler and Lorca.
It will be very interesting to me if Lorca is so proud about the fact that he splits hairs and the fact that this guy who's from 24 miles outside of Seattle is actually from 24,000 light years outside of Seattle.
I know, that's so funny. Oh, well, it just goes to show, like, Cornwell's right.
Yeah.
This guy is not playing with a full set of... this guy is not healthy. He's not in a mentally healthy place at all. And it kind of goes to show because what he's doing is he's cultivating and collecting damaged people, and he's finding people to redeem because he needs redemption, and that's what's motivating him. And it's working out really well in Mike's favor, but it could conceivably, if our theory is correct, really bite him in the ass when it comes to Ash Tyler.
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about. So we've talked about the theory that Ash Tyler is a Klingon, and there have been. We know
specifically,
that,
if you didn't listen to other episodes.
Vogue specifically. And we talked before about the Mirror Universe Lorca theory, which is something that I previously didn't give much weight to because I thought it would kind of water down this is Starfleet learning to be good. This is Starfleet being tested for the first time.
Yeah, and I'm very.
But.
Yeah.
Cornwell specifically said, "You're not the man I used to know, and I can't tell if this is really you." And to me, that's so on the nose that it makes it interesting.
And it also, I'm coming right off of that. It also makes it really interesting because this, PTSD and the mental health of soldiers in this type of war is such a relevant topic. That I also feel like that gives it that's the other side of the seesaw, that this could just be a really relevant thing for Star Trek to do.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like he could be the red herring that, like, it could be that Stamets is the Mirror Universe guy and we've been led to think that it's Lorca when Lorca is just really damaged. Which would be great because then I feel like Anthony Rapp would die and not come back for season 2 and Jason Isaacs would stay. And I love Anthony Rapp and he's great, but there's no comparison.
Okay, I liked Stamets as the gruff bones kind of surly guy doing his job. I love Stamets high on mushrooms.
Yeah. Are you ready to move on to Stamets? Because I definitely want to talk about that. Is there anything else that we should say about Tyler and Lorca? Or can we just...
No, I don't. Yeah, let's move on to that, because I think we've got a lot of talking about Burnham and Sarek to do.
Yeah, and I also really want to get into Burnham and Tyler as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stamets was a delight this week.
Yes.
I enjoyed him so much.
And my notes for I tossed a couple questions into our show notes, like, how often is Stamets taking mushrooms? And while I was writing those notes, I was watching After Trek, and I saw the teaser for next week on After Trek.
Mm-hmm.
He's starting to mainline them.
Yeah.
Like, Culber has given him a pick line, essentially, so that he can just shoot up mushrooms.
He's got an IV.
Time to go.
Yeah.
So
that's, yeah, I mean, it's like, as much as I like Stamets, obviously the fact that he is cheerful and delightful and like, yeah, sure, I like weird, you're crazy,
groovy.
You're my kind of, yeah, groovy, and you're my kind of crazy, let's go. And he's just positive out the wazoo, and you can see Lorca is visibly like confused by this.
Yeah,
it's like he has one of my like laugh out loud lines, one of the first ones that I've seen on this, one of the first times I've like cackled on this show was when Stamets' main role in this episode is to facilitate Mike's connection with Sarek and to facilitate the signal boost of her kind of connecting to Sarek. But at some point, she has to explain how this works. She has to explain the Katra, and Lorca's like, what? And Stamets is like, yeah, got it. Okay, whatever you got. And then he gets really excited about it. He's like, oh my God, it's like you're doing this and this. And he gets really, really excited. And Lorca's like, okay, we have absolutely no time to discuss the metaphysics of this. Like, he's like, I don't like this side of you either. Like, you just stay focused.
My favorite moment also in that scene was we could take the Discovery in there, but with all these mycelium spores in here.
I know. This guy is definitely high as fuck.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's like, this is not high on shrooms. This is 100% high on cocaine. Like, this is not shrooming at all. This is an inappropriate metaphor. But I wouldn't know anything about that.
Space shrooms.
Sorry, I clearly made you laugh, though. What did I say?
Oh, no. This was me remembering that scene.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Yeah, so Stamets is clearly in for a come down soon, but
not next week.
Not next week. Well, yeah, and like this is we've got Stamets and Lorca kind of on this parallel, like just wondering who's going to bottom out first.
Yeah.
And I'm into it. It's really compelling, more so than them being in constant conflict.
Right.
Which
the conflict on the ship has diminished considerably, except for, guest star of the week.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to like talk about the Tilly and Mike this week and their run and I have to say it. I fucking hate the disco shirts because it's a Geico font, and Geico is a major sponsor, and their commercial comes up every single time. Like every single commercial break, there's a Geico commercial, and every time I see a disco shirt, it just looks like Geico first, and it makes me angry because it is
also the font from the cover of the Star Trek Next Generation technical manual.
Okay, but all right. Well, then it's all better then. It's product.
Yeah,
it's like almost clear product placement. Like it's just too much. I don't know. It feels like that to me. Maybe I'll look closer at it. But just the fact that like we're constantly getting hit with the visual of Geico in the commercials. It's like Geico. You see that logo, and it's just so similar. And I really refuse to believe that it's not a coincidence, and it's bugging me because Star Trek is usually pretty free product placement for obvious reasons.
Well, they're also selling the shirts.
I'm sure they are.
But with the font they're using, I looked up the font so that I could make parody shirts, and the font they're using is actually called Federation.
Oh, it's still... Well, maybe then I don't know. It's still...
I think Geico used a similar font as opposed to the other way around.
Okay, I don't like that any better then either. It's still bothering me. But that's my nitpick of this episode, is that I really didn't care for that. But
my nitpick of the episode was that the food synthesizers are a little too preachy about.
They're really friendly.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the computer is like an actual like server. Here you go. This is nutritious
Right.
and appetizing.
It's because the menus can't show you the calories because you're doing it vocal. But I did love the Mike picking out Tilly's breakfasts.
Yeah, let's just talk about the relationship between Mike and Tilly right now, because I was iffy on Tilly at the first couple of episodes because it was just a little bit too much, but I love the relationship they've fallen into.
Yeah.
And I really like Tilly. Like, she had my favorite line last week where she's like, I like feeling feelings and choose your pain. I was like, all right, you're real cute. You could stay.
Yeah. And she had a similar, you know what I do when I'm upset? I talk.
She's just like hopeless, and Mike is just like, you can tell Mike is like, God.
And then there's just a beat, and then Mike says, I basically think I failed at life. Fail at everything.
Yeah, it's
and that's Sarek's worst memory is me failing.
So you're also very self-centered, Mike, just FYI. So they have this great run, and they've settled into this nice mentorship relationship, but it doesn't feel that Tilly is her sycophant. She really feels like she's because Tilly initially was scared of her and was kind of mean to her, and there's definitely still a power balance there. Their relationship is blossoming into something really kind of fun and cool, and you feel like Mike likes her too. You know, she's not as she's so earnest that she's not grating. And
yes,
I think that Mike is also, I think, on a journey, and we see a lot of this episode, to reclaim her own humanity and to explore it in a way she hasn't before. That I think Tilly is sort of the very positive iteration of that, the positive manifestation of that.
Yeah, I think Tilly is also what we would have gotten if the TNG writers had known how to write a child. It's what we could have gotten out of Wesley.
Yeah, people love to hate on Wesley a whole lot, and I feel like Wesley was a decent character. It was just sort of the positions they put him in just made him impossible to swallow. I'm like, nobody wants to see a kid save the Enterprise. You can't have the flagship of the Federation and then have an episode where there's an acting like this. No, that doesn't happen. But like, Wesley himself, I thought, would have been really interesting had he just been this genius kid with nothing to do. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, a little bit.
But I agree with you. I think that she's a far more accurate representation of a very smart, eager beaver who is socially who's
coming into her own.
Yeah, who's more book smart.
She's a late bloomer.
Well, yeah, like her social intelligence hasn't blossomed along with her mental intelligence, I guess. So, which is, common among nerds.
Yeah, she's a smarter me in my freshman, sophomore year of college.
Aw. You guys are gingers, too.
Yeah. That didn't happen until my freshman, sophomore year of college when I decided facial hair could be a thing. Yeah, but I love Tilly and Mike a lot.
And this episode was the one that made me want to see more of it. That you can see, you can see Mike start to trust her and really kind of let her in.
Well, when she says that she wants Tilly there because she's smart, and also I will need moral support.
Yeah,
that was honest. That wasn't a joke.
Yeah, and it makes sense because Tilly really is the only one she has.
Yeah,
I'm also really, really interested. Going off of the Tilly stuff, Mike also starts to form a relationship with Ash Tyler, and I like the idea of these three becoming kind of a fun unit.
They call them in After Trek the Three Musketeers.
Oh yes, I need to.
Yeah,
I still don't. I have a heart. I don't know. I
understand.
Yeah. I'm glad that you. I feel like you watch it and you give me the good bits, and I don't watch. If I watched it, I would. This show would be After Trek and my version of After Trek. So
you listen to podcasts and I don't.
Yeah.
So, more often.
Perfect.
So,
folks, you just saw me and Johnny work out just what great partners we are.
Yeah.
But, are you kind of good with Tilly and Mike? Can we talk about Tilly and Ash?
Yeah, absolutely.
So so at New York Comic Con,
Tilly and Ash.
pardon me, Mike and Ash.
Okay.
Mike and Ash. So at New York Comic Con, somebody wrote an article about how, like, maybe, and this is just what caught my eye, that maybe Sonequa was going to have a relationship with the tardigrade somehow. And I was like, what the everlasting frick? Who is saying
Did we talk
this?
about the fact that that the tardigrade was supposed to be
a bug?
pitched as a character?
No, but
as the chief engineer.
Oh no, but like, let me well, that's not this is not related to that.
Okay.
Essentially, somebody asked, I can't find the quote right now, but somebody asked if at the Star Trek panel if there was going to be a love interest for Michael Burnham, and Sonequa Martin Green said, you know, she demurred and said, well, it's Star Trek, and if we do it, it's going to be kind of, you know, it's going to be really interesting, it's going to be really diverse, and she basically said it's going to get weird. Like, if she has one, it's going to be a really interesting one. And somebody took that to freaking mean, like, oh, it's going to be interspecies, and it's going to be, like, maybe she'll have one with the tardigrade because she has this connection with it, blah, blah, blah. And that was the stupid thing that got my attention. But then watching this episode and knowing what we think we might know.
What we think we know.
About Ash Tyler, that made me so excited, because these are two people with so much in common, but if they knew who the other were, they would be, there's no way that they couldn't be enemies at all. Like, there's no room for friendship knowing what they've done to each other. But seeing them in this context, when they can wear these masks and thus kind of be a little bit, show each other sides of themselves that they wouldn't normally be able to, I am just so excited for this relationship.
Now, that to me, and I harped on this I'm going to say last week, even though it was 25 minutes ago.
Last episode, yeah.
The idea that that Voke's personality is buried, and that she's getting to know some semblance of the real Ash Tyler, and Voke will come back to the forefront. And it'll be kind of a Tuvix situation where he has to decide whether he wants to be with Kes or not.
Kind of like separating the ingredients after you've baked the cake. That line, that's a direct line from that episode. I don't know why I've seen Tuvix as many times as I've seen Tuvix. Oh, because it comes before Resolutions. It was the episode on my VHS tape that came before Resolutions, so I always wound up watching the last 10 minutes of it before I rewatched Resolutions for like the 10 millionth time. Got it. Thanks, Brain. Appreciate that. I think that I'm leaning towards you in terms of accuracy, just because I don't believe this guy could affect humanity so well in a month. Mm-hmm. Folks, if you didn't listen to our last episode and you just popped onto this one because our last episode was so late in getting up, we talked about how if Ash Tyler is in fact Voke posing as Ash Tyler, which would explain why L'Rell took him away and was like, you have to give up everything. In episode 4, that was a theory that we posited, or that the internet has posited, that we are parroting. And one of my questions with that is that it checks a lot of boxes. The only one it doesn't check is that Ash Tyler is a remarkably convincing human, and Voke would have been human for like less than a month, most likely. There's no way that he could have been genetically engineered to look that way in minutes. So clearly his transformation took a while, and then he went under, like, this guy went to like some serious acting class and has humanity down pat.
Has a better English accent than L'Rell.
Yeah, and so Johnny's theory, and it's something that I subscribe to, is that this is some kind of, like, this is Voke, but his memories have been replaced and implanted with those of Ash Tyler's, or with somebody assuming, like, looking like, or like assuming the form of Ash Tyler. I'm also think that it could be some kind of like genetic material blend where Voke is there, but they've inserted Ash Tyler's genetic material into him somehow. I am not a scientist, so this could sound very off base to anybody who is a scientist.
That's okay, because neither are the writers of Star Trek.
This is true. They are more so than me, though. So yeah, I mean, we have some theories about what or who Ash Tyler is, and how if he is Voke, how consciously Voke is present.
Yeah.
I am really, really tempted to... I agree with you, because Voke just does not seem this smart. I don't think that he could subsume his personality and play...
Not so much smart as wily.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's too direct. Like, this is more of a L'Rell thing.
Yeah.
Which would be cool if
Vogue
Vogue
stabs
is
you in the
Laurel
butt.
and Laurel put herself in Ash Tyler. Now we've got a soap opera.
And Ash Tyler put himself into Mud, who put himself into
Lorca. Admiral Cornwell.
Into Admiral Cornwell,
Yes.
who got put into the Bug.
Yes, and the Bug is the tardigrade.
Yep.
Who's
There we go. Solved it all. Don't need to finish the season.
Finally free. Oh, I will say, like, we didn't mention this last episode, and I want to. The tardigrade was so precious, and I just wanted to give it a big hug. It was like Ludo, and it was like baby Groot levels of heartstrings when that tardigrade was like.
Yeah, I thought the tardigrade died. I was legitimately upset.
I was so sad. I was like, please don't, no. Okay, this isn't Star Trek, all right? Like, this, you guys, and then they let it go, and I was like, okay.
I was like, Data's daughter Lau level of sad.
Oh, it was for me. It was when like Troy loses that kid she's had for a week.
See, I was
Ian?
also a teenage boy at that point in time, so I recognized the obnoxiousness of myself. And
how that was an episode you only watched once.
Yep.
Yeah, it was okay. Well, anyway, so either I kind of hope that there is some. I'm leaning towards Vogue being more conscious, just because I think that was why he was angry at Laurel last week. That's kind of my headcanon right now. We'll see if it's true. I'm leaving lots of room because the show is becoming more and more difficult to telegraph, which I love.
Which is great.
Mm-hmm. And so right now I tend to think that Vogue is here and that he is very intrigued by the fact that he's looking at Michael Burnham, who is the woman who killed his mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how eerie, when you think about it from that perspective, it makes all of their interactions incredibly eerie. Like that last scene between them in the mess hall when like he's got something and she cheers the tea and she introduces herself, and you see herself becoming more comfortable with her humanity and making herself vulnerable to a predator.
Well, not just that, but his first line of, I'm paraphrasing, but the first time they meet, right before she eats the bad burrito that turns out to be a mind meld, you're not who you were then, you're who you are now.
Ooh. He's like playing with his food.
Ooh.
It's really...
Especially given that he ate Giorgio.
Still pissed. Yeah. Still pissed about that. Like, I legitimately am. That makes me angry. That idea, because I have such affection for her already. God bless. Oh, also, by the way, folks, if you didn't catch this, Michelle Yeoh crashed the NYCC panel.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, and I think it was actually a legitimate crash because she got up. I think she might have known about it, but I don't think the cast members did, because she got up and wore a mask and asked a question and then pulled it off. And they were like, oh my God, it's Michelle Yeoh. And she threatened Jason Isaacs. It was pretty fun.
That's funny.
Anyway, so, yeah, I'm just liking, I agree. Like I'm a relationship person. I like interesting relationships in any story. That's really what grabs me more than anything else, or what really will hook me into a story. And the story is kind of what I ride in terms of interest. I don't know if you're the same, but this for me is just this for me. This episode was kind of a wet dream because we got Lorca and we got sex on Star Trek, like really scandalous, kind of creepy sex on Star Trek between an admiral and a captain, which never happens. It's great. And
Nechayev and Picard were totally boning.
Oh my God, I shipped that for like 5 minutes real hard. Like real hard. Kind of in the same way I shipped Pulaski and Picard for 5 minutes, but it's, and then we have these three musketeers over here, and I like the fact that Tilly thinks he's hot, but she didn't immediately get jealous or sad when he clearly shows more interest in Mike.
Yeah, she was totally like, and not my turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is great, just because I'm like, I don't know that I can take another fucking like two women being like, no, I liked him for 2 seconds, so screw you. Like, shut up. Yeah, it was good. And like also, I noticed. I don't know. How do you? Okay, we see Burnham really embracing her humanity. in a way that for her is like, this is like her being being like a straight A student, going to Harvard and going to medical school, and then one day deciding that she's going to snort a line of cocaine. Like, her indulging in these, this is how important her training was on Vulcan. This is how important her fostering was. She was told to leave off of all these kinds of emotions, and here she is indulging them and enjoying them and letting go a little bit. And so we're seeing, on the one side, we're seeing humanity really blossom in someone and really nourish them and wake up different parts of their personality. And then in Lorca, you see humanity's vulnerability and fallibility doing something really dark and taking him someplace really evil and taking him someplace really dangerous. And I thought that was a really interesting juxtaposition to see. I don't know if you noticed that or if I'm just reading into nothing, but
no, I think you're right. It's not something that I did notice, but I think you're absolutely right.
Okay. It was
yeah, I think you're right. I think it definitely was there and was intentional, and one of the reasons that this episode hit so well.
Yeah, it really, God, the more we talk about it, the more I'm just like, oh, it was good. Should we move to Sarek and Mike?
Yeah.
Is it bothering you? Okay, so like because all the, like the old like OG Trek guard has been like, it's Sarek. I'm a pronunciation whore, and now it is bothering the everlasting crap out of me that everyone is pronouncing it Sarek.
I always pronounce it Sarek.
All right.
So no, but
that
doesn't mean that I pronounced it properly.
I wonder if Surak is going to come up. Surak, if you're not familiar, folks, is the like father of Vulcan logic and philosophy. He's like the Vulcan Kalis, essentially. He defines their way of life. And he's always been annoyingly close to Sarek. I literally made that, like, when they announced that Sarek was going to be Sarek, we'll just say Sarek for the purposes of this podcast or this conversation right now. When they announced that, I don't know if you remember, Johnny, but I posted on Facebook. I was like, holy shit, Sarek's gonna be
yep.
And I caught it, and then you commented, nice catch. I think you messaged me, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah.
So embarrassed.
Yeah, I want to talk before we get into their relationship, the first scene we had with Sarek, where we had the Vulcan isolationist movement.
Yeah, because we've seen that before, haven't we?
We've seen that before in Next Generation, in Gambit Part 1 and Part 2, which was better known as the episode where Picard becomes a spy.
Yeah, like a weirdo con artist.
It's one of those TNG was kind of running out of ideas episodes.
Yeah, it's a two-parter that you feel like you're watching it, you're like, I should be more interested in this. Yeah,
and it's by Naren Shankar, who was an excellent Trek writer.
Yeah, like I barely remember what happens in Gambit. Just goes to show you guys like how much that episode does not land.
Yeah, it's Picard's Indiana Jones hunting after a magic archaeological thingy. But the people who steal it were in fact Vulcan isolationists who thought that aliens were destroying the Vulcan way of life.
Which, and like, to be fair, they ain't wrong. You cannot have. Humans have, like, half of Sarek's experiment with Mike is that humans can do the same thing Vulcans can do, which is suppress their emotions and live in logic. And it's not, they can't. We don't, like, Vulcans are able to do this because they have mental discipline and they have, like, these kind of minor telepathic abilities, and they are able, like, they're able to mind control better. There's not really a defined reason why, but it's part
they're not just able to, they need to, because their emotions are crazy. So much stronger and deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's the defining part of what makes a Vulcan alien that they're able and need to do this. So the idea goes against just the show Bible logic, the idea that humans could be able to do this. Like that would if a human was able to do that, we would call that an unhealthy human. And that's kind of so the ice, like, the thing is, though, like, there's really nothing wrong with humans, like, going to the Vulcan Science Academy and, like, trying to be logical. It doesn't really affect Vulcans that much. And Vulcans typically don't intermarry. Like, humans can't deal with Vulcans that well anyway. Like, Vulcans, you don't get the sense that, like, there are tons of human women clamoring after Vulcan men. Like, I would get annoyed with Vulcans after a while. Like, it's not like the isolationists are right that like if Vulcans did embrace all of their cultures, they would lose their Vulcanness for sure. But there's just really no danger of that happening because Vulcans are kind of annoying, is my like the way I see it.
Okay, I won't disagree.
I'm sorry, I soapboxed all over
That's
you.
An interesting take.
I'm sorry.
Vulcans don't need to worry about it because Vulcans kind of suck. I got nothing to that. But another interesting thingy about just the scene in general is Vulcan fanatic injected himself with this red juice that turned him into a bomb.
Very basics part one.
Very basics part one. And this is just a neat thing I noticed in the credits. One of the sketches we see in the credits is the Vulcan salute with, I think, the pinky bright red.
Interesting.
So I wonder if we're going to see more of this or not.
I bet we will. Because it comes up in his memory. Like there's the theme of which we'll get to, I think, in a minute. One of the reasons that Mike is not let into the Science Academy is because the Vulcans are hella racist and they are not interested, and they don't consider Spock human. They don't consider Spock Vulcan. They consider him human, even though he's half. And
Vulcans follow the one drop rule.
Yep, it's pretty gross.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. I will say, I just want to mention this before we move away from the shuttle sabotage, that you gotta love Sarek. This guy is about to blow himself and Sarek up, and Sarek is just sitting there looking at him, and by the time the guy is finished giving him all the relevant information, Sarek's like, okay, bye. He is unflappable, does not bat an eyelash, just like, great, all right, see ya. Ouch. All right, okay, let's figure this out. Like, I mean, just, I'm loving James Frain in this. He's occasionally going a bit too, he's a little too smarmy. He's chewing the scenery a little bit. He's chewing the Vulcan a little bit when he's like, he's raising his, he could take it in maybe like 10 feet. Take the eyebrow down a notch. Yeah, like he could just dial it back a little bit, but for the most part, I'm loving him. And I'm loving this kind of intimate look we're getting at this character who's at this point 50 years old. This character is in the life of in this world, in our world. This is a 50-year-old character, and he's, does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? A 50-year-old, yeah, like he's been around since the original series, and so it's a pleasure to get this kind of look at him, this kind of intimate look at him. And also, I laughed. That was so funny. Ain't nobody got time for this. So should we talk about once Mike gets into Sarek's head, what happens? Yeah. What happens? Well, we get suddenly we're watching The Cell. Which is dope, by the way. I'm like, why haven't we done this? We did this on the Dark page and it wasn't nearly as interesting. Yeah. That was this was, we got multiple takes of the same memory of Mike not making it into the Vulcan expeditionary, the Vulcan science expeditionary team, which is like essentially their Star Trek or Starfleet. And it's heartbreaking, wasn't it? Like, she was just like seeing that kind of family dynamic. It was the first time that we've seen him in anything other than like a teacher mode. Like, this felt like somebody getting rejected from Harvard Med School or something, and her just being like, I just want to go home, and just being so close to breaking, and Amanda just being like, you walk in there and you tell Amanda just wanted to give her a hug and tear the principal apart. I loved it. It was very Lorelai Gilmore. And Sarek essentially pushed the blame on her. It was really ugly like that. And I almost, you could tell from Amanda's dynamic, from Amanda's personality, you could tell that he was lying. Or not lying, but like you could tell that You could tell that he was hiding. You could tell that she would not have been, she's not a hysterical woman, and she could tell, like, going off of Amanda's reaction, you could tell that something was amiss, and you knew it was Sarek, because Sarek has always been like this. He's always been morally superior, and he makes mistakes. That's kind of why he's always been a bit of a dick.
To me, the most telling line was it shame? Shame is a very human emotion.
She says, doesn't she says that to Sarek when he's in sickbay, right? Like at the end, is that what you mean?
No, well, he says it to her first.
Okay, yeah, then it is shame because she calls it. I remember hearing that, and that would be a callback, yeah.
And to me, he was the one who was ashamed, not her, and it was very telling immediately.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, very much so. It was This was really, I loved watching this. I want to watch it again just because to see the subtext of this scene and just the dynamics of their family was really a pleasure.
Yeah.
And beautifully, beautifully wrought, I thought.
I personally really liked the violence in which he reacted towards her every time, not just the physically violent.
The emotional.
It's like this is why the Vulcans embrace logic, because
it's that or this.
When they're not, it's get the fuck out of my head.
It reminded me of, do you remember that episode? It's the one where Alexander Enberg, Vulcan, on Voyager goes through the Pon farr and he mind melds with B'Elanna, so she goes through like the Klingon version of it, which is terrifying, and then she and Paris have to have sex for her to like get it out of her system. I mean, it's so messed up. But it's also the first episode where they get indication that they're heading into Borg space, so it's like third season. And it reminded me of when Tom and there's two ways to solve the problem. Like the Pon farr will kill B'Elanna if she doesn't mate, she has to burn it off.
Uh-huh.
And so she and Tom start to do this, and then instead of them actually doing it, Alexander Enberg, who's the actor, I forget his name, he comes in and he grabs he grabs B'Elanna off of Paris and he screams, "You are my mate, not his!" And it was the same intensity, like that kind of like, and an immediate switch, like just, I mean, not really, he just wasn't in the scene before, but for Sarek to go straight from that, that unflappable, kind of imperturbable Vulcan veneer to just immediately literally kicking her out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah, that was neat.
And I also wonder. So we've heard the talk about the Katra a couple times,
which I can't hear without hearing in Michael Richards' like / Kramer voice. Like I can't take the Katra seriously anymore. Seinfeld has fully ruined it for me. Like every time they say it, I'm like hee hee.
But so, and also we know when we saw Sarek on TNG that he has the Bendy syndrome, which is a degenerative Vulcan disease.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of that is due to the fact that he gave away his Katra to a human?
And proceeded to let
and didn't. Yep.
And also proceeded to use, because they liken the Katra to the spore drive. That's why Stamets gets so excited, is that she can sort of travel in a kind of astral project, which they show in the pilot, utilizing this subconscious highway system that is essentially the Katra, the way they talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have this human being running around on this network, infecting it with her emotion and all this kind of stuff, perhaps did weaken it and did weaken. It makes sense. Like this theory about this is why he gets Bendy syndrome is just really, it fits in so nicely. I'm liking it so much. So hopefully, I'm hoping if that was unintentional, they embrace it, because I think it works really well.
I don't think that they would have had the line that it has a heavy cost on me without it.
I don't disagree with you, but I also think it makes perfect sense with sort of like the popular culture notions of telepathy that it would have a cost on him to do that at great distance. But I agree with you. I think it could go either way, and I'm inclined to believe that they did know that, or that they are harkening back to that and trying to explain it. It also makes me wonder if this whole thing is going to have such a if this whole thing is going to explode so poorly that, because we already know in current Star Trek that there is no spore drive, there is no mention of Spock having a sister, and Amanda and Sarek having a foster daughter. And in our one of the episodes that you should watch this week, if you want to add to, what is the word, like, and if you want to sort of, like, you know, just add to your experience of this, if you want to enhance this, and specifically you should watch the original series episode Journey to Babel. It's the first episode in which we meet Sarek. He's mentioned a couple of times before in the original series, specifically about what he does as an ambassador and that he and Spock have a feud. But Journey to Babel also features Amanda. It's the only episode Amanda, I believe, appears on, because she's dead at the time of The Next Generation, because she's human. She doesn't live that long. Yeah. So we see Amanda, we see Spock, and we see Sarek, and we see this family dynamic, and obviously no one mentions Mike or Sybok. Yeah. But Sybok is way more of a retcon than Mike ever will be. But so I'm wondering if they don't find a way to sort of memory erase Mike and Discovery from everybody using the Katra, or at least from Sarek. I guess that wouldn't do it for Amanda, would it? But, no. Well, I guess he could mind meld with. I feel like Vulcans could do that if he could mind meld with her somehow. And if the Katra is something more physical than more like metaphysical and something you can manipulate, I wonder if they can erase her tracks, for lack of a better word. And that's how.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed I want to know what kind of fight choreography that was. I want to know what kind of martial arts that was.
They talked about it a little bit on After Trek.
Did they give it a name? Is it Kung Fu? Is it Aikido? Is it?
It is not. It's not a specific. It's a combination.
Okay. It reminded me a little. I don't know if you read this. I can't remember what book it was from. It's a Next Generation book, and at some point they go to Kronos and they're seeing like this elite group of like Klingon fighters, and they're practicing. And I think it's Riker's point of view where he talks about, maybe, I don't know, I think it might just be third person omniscient, where they talk about how all the fighters were missing. And it was a good thing because, or they say like all of those blows that the fighters were throwing, they're sparring, all the blows that the fighters would throw at each other would have been deadly, so it was a good thing they were missing. But the thing is, they were just all equally matched. So the reason that like they were all like, had one of them not been good enough, had one of them not moved out of the way, they would have died. Does that make sense? Right. Yeah, like, yep. It just reminded me like this kind of equally matched fight of them just essentially blocking each other back and forth. Once she gets more determined and is like, no, I'm not leaving, like, screw you. It kind of reminded me of that image of these just two equally matched fighters, which is interesting because at the beginning of this episode, Sarek has a high status. At the middle of this episode, they have equal status. And at the end of the episode, he's the kid and she's the parent.
Yeah. He even looked like young.
I know. It's the bowl cut.
It's the bowl cut, yeah. I did have that haircut at 15.
And he's in the hospital bed and he's all like,
Yeah.
I love how her punishment, now that she has the power, now that she knows what he did, which we should talk about, she's like, oh, we're going to be a family now, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm going to hug you. We're going to talk about our feelings, and it's what's going to happen. Because you chose Spock over me, and you let me think that it was me. That is some human bullshit.
Here's what we're going to do tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you about the issues I'm having with my feelings for Ash Tyler.
And you're going to
give me advice.
Yep. And then we might go for a run together, or play a game of chess, or you might teach me how to throw a ball. I don't know.
Or maybe you want to meet my friend, Sylvia.
Sylvia Tilly. She's amazing. You're going to love her. Oh, I can't wait for that. Oh, I hope he sticks around for next week. Oh man, I can't wait for. I'm more excited for Sylvia to meet Sarek and to just kind of not know what to say.
Yeah.
So let's get to. We should talk about this big thing that Sarek did. This. So essentially, we're led to believe that because Sarek lets, which is kind of true, he lets, because he can't lie. Vulcans can't lie. He doesn't come out and say that. He basically says that despite the fact that her test scores were good and she excelled in everything better than Vulcans, they're still not going to let her in. He says
Right.
that he's like, there are other metrics, and he lets Amanda be like, well, you go back in there and you tell them, and he's like, there's nothing I can do. And Mike has always felt less than, so it's easy for her to believe that it's her fault. When in point of fact, what's happened is the first like straight Caucasian Vulcan we've ever seen. I don't know if you noticed that. This guy had like peaches and cream skin tone. I was like, what is you look like Count Dooku. What's happening? So he is like, yeah, so you like humans and stuff. And Stark was like, yeah, like, look at this awesome human. Why don't you like her? And they're like,
she got the haircut.
Yeah, and she's really smart. She's smarter than all the Vulcans. And the Vulcans are like, yeah, about that. We're not fans. Which, for me, is, like, obviously the real reason. Like, they don't want to admit that they're saying, like, well, we don't want to pollute the gene pool, whatever, when really, in point of fact, I think what they don't want to admit is the fact that, like, humans have the capability of being as smart and capable as they are with the use of emotions.
It'd be like if a Vulcan ever tried to play baseball.
I was going to say basketball, but yeah, if they were good at... Oh, that episode of DS9.
That's the joke, yes.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know, that made it better.
Despite how stupid a premise that was, I still really enjoyed it.
It's a great episode.
It's just real fun when Ferengi play baseball. I don't know, like, if you don't like that episode, you don't like fun.
It's also fun when Odo's a ref.
Yeah, incredibly appropriate as well. So sorry, this guy, the head of the Science Academy, is like, listen, we're not into having...
Steve.
Yeah, Steve is like, listen, we are not Stevok.
Stevok. Can all Vulcans whose name we don't know become Stevok?
I actually just like Steve.
Okay.
I'm kind of...
So we've got Admiral Steve.
Vulcans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Admiral Steve. So Admiral Steve and then, like, Vulcan Science Academy, or Science Expedition Steve.
And Principal Steve.
Yeah, Principal Steve. So Principal Steve is like, the human, that's not going to happen. I know she's got great scores. And in point of fact, that bothers me even more.
Right.
And I'm not in love with your experimenting with humans, especially your other one. And you could see Stark's, like, dander get up at the fact that he's calling his son, like, he's like, my son is half...
He's calling his son a mudblood.
Yeah. It's like, the Vulcans are so low-key racist. It's really funny.
I don't know that I'd call that low-key racist.
Like, high-key, like, very racist.
I'd call that racist.
Hella racist. Actually, yeah, you're right.
That's actually what you call it in our show notes.
I know. I'm looking at it right now. But I think everything Vulcans do is low-key just because they're Vulcans. But yeah, this is 100% very, very racist. And Sarek is just like, he's almost hurt, and he's disappointed, I think, in his own people.
Yeah.
Because this is highly illogical what they're doing. They're denying themselves, someone who is an asset.
Right.
And that was really touching to me to see him, like, so sad, and then for this guy to be like, okay, well, you can have one human. You can have her, or you can have your son. And he picks his son, and Spock doesn't even go, which...
Spock doesn't even go.
And that really grounds the rift between them, because in the original, in Journey to Babel, which is when we meet Sarek and Spock and we first learn about this rift, they're pretty clear about it. It's because he didn't stay on Vulcan and go to the Science Academy. And that works in 1966. This works way better here.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So sad.
And I had something and I lost it.
Well, it's why he pushes her out of his head. Like, really, that's why.
Because he is humiliated at the choice. And ultimately, as far as the Vulcans go, you see the same situation right now. If somebody reasons themselves into a point of bigotry without any logic behind it, you can't logic them out of it.
Yeah. Which is a pretty prescient statement to make in this day and age.
Yeah.
And you see, like, this is the first time I think we've really seen since reunification. This is the first time since that episode when he's completely just, or Yeah, no, I would say reunification, not Sarek, the first TNG episode he was in. It's the first time that we really see him vulnerable and frightened and kind of laid bare. And it was... I'm surprised at how much I didn't realize I loved this character.
Yeah. They're doing a really good job with Discovery, Sarek, of giving us more.
And not instead of changing him?
Yeah.
I agree.
And that, to me, bodes very well.
Yeah. This was, I think I'm with you. I think I need to watch it 1 or 2 more times, but this was probably my favorite episode so far, just because it went everywhere. It didn't feel all over the place. Like, it didn't feel like episode 4 where it was just, or no, it didn't feel like last week where, oh no, episode 4 where they saved the colony. Like, that just felt like it was very discombobulated and they just tried to do way too much in one episode, which, you know, happens. But this felt balanced and sort of 2 separate streams that met again at the very end, and just nothing but nice things to say about this. Did you notice the score of this episode? Did it stick out to you?
It was 36-22? 30? No. Oh, I really thought you meant the score between the fight, like in the not quite a holodeck. I really thought there was a neat little Easter egg in the numbers. You mean the music?
I meant the music. Yeah. Yeah.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that we're very good partners. That is clearly a mistake that I'm like, dude, that like that episode of DS9 when then Vulcan plays baseball. I thought they really played with the theme this episode. Like the first, I had a hard time listening to it because I don't have air conditioning. I leave my windows open and I have very noisy neighbors who play music at inappropriate times. And I listen to loud television at inappropriate times, so I really shouldn't complain because they don't complain about me. But I couldn't tell if it was them or if it was the television. I realized that they had kind of put Discovery to a bit of a dance beat as they were running, or put the theme to a bit of a dance beat as they were running, and then on the shuttlecraft the music was really, really phenomenal. And then when they're in sickbay, there was this gorgeous harp. They plucked a harp, and it was the the first sort of like chord of Star Trek that really I will
have to check this out again.
Yeah, folks, give those scenes a listen again if you haven't. The music this episode is really, really good. Like everything else. Yeah. I hate to fan out so much about it because I feel like I'm not being critical enough, but I really liked this one.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was.
I'm also excited for next week.
Refresh my memory, just because I kind of watched it and then immediately went into doing our show notes tonight. What's the?
Well, here's your to-watch homework for next week. It's Cause and Effect, which is the episode of TNG.
Time loop! With Frasier, with Kelsey Grammer.
Yep, where they get caught in a time loop for 17 days and then meet Frasier.
It's great. And Kelsey Grammer is full beard.
It's going to be a time loop episode with Harry Mudd, and Stamets is the only one who has any idea what's going on because he's high on mushrooms.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this is vintage Star Trek. Like, you're right. Yeah, I saw this preview and was like, time loop? Time loop? Is it time for a time loop?
Yeah. So, Cause and Effect.
And
that's your homework this week, guys.
It really, really does. It does look like it's an actual time loop. Like, I was like, yep, all of the signs of a time loop, different bottle episode, different like small bottle scenes with people like visiting their worst fears, like
things exploding, somebody kissing somebody,
dance scene, Lorca looking really worried in a room that he's not sure that he's in. Like, yes, clear all classic time loop symptoms.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, we'll cut it for that. We will be back Tuesday morning with a discussion of episode 7. Thank you so much for listening. If you've been listening to this, we appreciate it. We're having a blast.
We are having our lives have led to this moment.
Truly a dream come true.
Thanks, Alex.
Bye.
Bye, folks.